Hi, this is my second video now in the same year. I think that's probably a record for me in recent memory. Anyways, new computer. As you can see, AST Advantage Adventure 466. This is a 486 base system. As you can see, the front panel's got a little bit of dirtiness and some marker residue. Top's pretty dirty. Likewise, so is the inside, so obviously this is going to be another one of those videos where we take the whole thing apart and clean it. Alright, so real quick, we're just spinning around to the back for I/O. There's the AST label on the back there, AST Advantage. And then panning across, we have our PS2 keyboard and mouse. We have our audio out, microphone in, joystick, serial, 10 meg Ethernet, parallel printer port, VGA, and up in the top there we have a modem card. Alright, just powering it on real quick to show that it indeed does work. Also in that intro clip, I really kind of misspoke the name. This is not an AST Advantage Adventure 466, this is an AST Advantage Adventure 466. And that distinction is obviously very important. As you saw there, it has a TI 486, which is not too common by any means, and as you can see now, it does indeed boot Windows 95, but we're wiping this because it is chock full of porn. And no, none of it's any good. And yeah, so that blurred area there is all the porn that's on the desktop, but just showing that it is an AST OEM image. Alright, so I looked for an OEM image for AST computers, but wasn't able to find one. But what I did find is a guide on how to OEM label a Windows 95 install, and those two highlighted files there, that oeminfo.ini and oemlogo.bmp, are what we can use to give an OEM logo to a Windows 95 install. So what I did is I just went ahead and copied those files to a floppy disk. And yeah, funnily enough, when I remove those files from the system directory there, it immediately removes it from the system properties. So it definitely does work. Alright, so getting the case off is not really that hard at all. There's two screws on the side that sort of secure the case in place. And then it just pulls forward and comes off, which I can't do on camera because I don't have three hands. Alright, so case open, we can see the Tori-san CD-ROM drive there. CDR S1G, and it is very dusty. And on the left we can see the Sony floppy drive MFP 520-M. And just below that is the hard drive, which we'll get out in short order. Here is the High Pro power supply. It is an HP-145PP3N. And here's the expansion card area. On the left there's our modem up at the top, and then we've got this AST sort of breakout board. We'll show how that's hooked up in just a minute. Below the modem card is a 3-COM networking card. This is a 3C509B-TPO, a very well-known, very venerable card. And finally, down at the bottom is our Texas Instruments 486DX2-66. Internally, this is a Cyrix chip, but it is Texas Instruments branded. And now we'll be jumping straight into disassembly, starting with the CD-ROM, floppy, and hard disk assembly. Alright, so to get that out, there's 3 screws. One there, sort of hidden away, and then one there. So once we get all those out, once we get all those screws out, the thing sort of slides back, which I'm trying to show you there. It sits in those grooves. And once you get it far enough back, you can sort of flip it up and onto the power supply, where you can easily remove the cables for all of the peripherals. Alright, so with that caddy out, first thing we're going to get out is the hard drive. There's one screw up at the top there, and then 2 screws on the side like this, and it sort of just drops down. Alright, so here's the drive, Seagate Cabo. This is a drive that I'm very interested in, I must say. This is a drive that was produced very, very shortly after the Seagate buyout of Connor peripherals, and you can see that by the fact that it has a Connor model number on it still. But other than that, we have the AST HDD image right there, which I really wasn't able to find anything on. And then flipping it over, just a quick view of the PCB. Alright, so for getting the floppy drive out, there's just 4 screws on the underside like this, and then the thing just sort of falls out of its little caddy. Very similar for the CD-ROM drive. The only difference is that we have to remove 1 screw for the lower of the two 5 1/4 inch bays, and once that thing's out of the way, we have the same 4 screws exposed for the CD-ROM drive. And so here that is out, the Taurus and CD-ROM drive. It's got 4 screws, 2 on either side, and those should let the top shell come off. Alright, so here's the insides of it. It's got cables all over the place, so I really only opened it far enough to inspect it, and it looks just fine, not much dust. Alright, so now onto the Sony floppy drive. 2 screw holes in the lid, as you can see there, and the lid sort of comes up. And now with the lid off, I was very interested to see that it has 2 meg prominently marked on the head there. So this is actually a 2.88 meg thing, and it's quite dusty, so we'll need to clean it pretty thoroughly. Alright, so we've cleaned out the floppy disk, and we've looped up the actuator here with some nice white lithium grease. And we're just going to go ahead and power it on real quick to show, you know, how it's improved the noise level, which, spoiler alert, it did not. The other thing that had to be done is when I cleaned the heads of this floppy drive, which I do with some isopropyl and a Q-tip, I had to actually get quite forceful with my cleaning. I'm usually quite gingerly, but in this case I actually had to sort of press down quite hard in order to get floppy disks to read properly with this drive. Alright, now on to removing the power supply. First thing that needs doing is taking the power button off. There's 2 screws on front there that secure the actual power thing in place, and then classic 4 screws around the back. Alright, so disassembling the rest. First thing to get out is this center bracket, which is screwless, just a metal clip at the front. And then we'll go ahead and disconnect the CD audio cable. 2 connectors for the front LEDs, both of which route to completely different places, which is a bit weird. And then we'll get the ribbon cable for the audio daughter board removed. And yeah, interestingly, they put all the circuitry for the audio on the riser card. And yeah, here's that audio bracket. There's nothing to it, just some input protection and then that cable that runs back to the riser card. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get the first expansion card out. This is going to be the modem card. Putting that down on the desk here, we can see that it is a Cirrus Logic based card, and yeah, other than that, it's very modem-y. Yep. Alright, next thing to get out is our 3COM Etherlink 3 3C509B-TPO. Again, this is a very ubiquitous card throughout the 90s. Only 10 meg, but, you know, so standard. I have so many of these things. And just about every operating system in the universe has support for these. Alright, so underneath that we can see that I've already done some work on it. Here's our modded Dallas RTC battery. I didn't have to desolder anything either. And there goes the riser card with its sound audio there on the right. Interesting that they mounted it on the riser card like that. I don't think I've really experienced another system that's like that. But anyway, it's an ESS audio drive, ES1868F. Alright, now we're just down to the motherboard. We have 7 screws to remove, and it will just come right out. Alright, so time skip. Here's the cleaned case, and we're going to start getting things reassembled, starting with the motherboard. Obviously, we're just going to go in the reverse order of the way we took it apart. Here we're smashing the riser back in place. Alright, so as we can see, we've got the expansion cards put in, including the audio breakout thing, and we've got the structural bracket put back in. Alright, so we've got the power supply put back in as well, and we've got the CD audio cable routed nicely in preparation for that. And here the system is completely reassembled, cables and everything, so we should be good to go. Alright, so first power on after reassembly. This thing does still turn on, as you can see there, and does still boot. Alright, so now on to the Windows 95 reinstall. We've got the floppy inserted into the drive, and we're going to be using the Windows 95 OSR2, aka Windows 95B, as you can see there, as opposed to the Windows 95 OSR 2.1, since we don't really need USB support in this one. Yeah, so once we're booted off the boot disk there, I was actually really surprised to see that the CD drive just just straight up works. I wasn't expecting this because it didn't work in the previous Windows 95 installation for whatever reason. Alright, so speeding through Windows 95 setup here, I just wanted to show that the 3COM 3C509 was detected by default, so that's pretty nice and convenient. Alright, so yeah, this is after first boot, but we had a bit of a weird moment here where the Windows 95 CD-ROM just wasn't detected for whatever reason. I thought we were going to have the same problem we did with the original install, but it was just there once setup finished. Alright, so after setup was finished, the next thing I wanted to do was go ahead and copy those OEM config files back into the system directory. So here I am just pulling them off the floppy disk and copying them straight into the system directory. And once that was done, I can go back into the system properties and you can see that the AST logo is indeed there. So yeah, not a true OEM image, but I still like the idea of having this there. It sort of gives validity to it. And then of course we're doing our classic install the iOmega zip driver. Alright, so the next thing we went ahead and did was installed Microsoft Plus, because obviously why wouldn't you? And the thing that I did for this one, instead of using the inside your computer theme, was to use the nature theme. And oh my god, I did not realize that Microsoft Plus had such a breadth of ugly themes, and nature is no exception. So yeah, the like, please wait icon is turned into a jiving bug. Look at him go. Alright, so for reasons, we're going to go ahead and time the amount of time it takes to start up Windows 95. So as soon as the starting Windows 95 thing comes up, we're going to start a timer on screen, and that's happening now. Yeah, so how are you guys doing today? You know what? Maybe I could fill this blank space with the sound of the hard drive. Yeah, let's do that. Wow, wasn't that a good sound? I actually do like that one a lot. Alright, there's our friend the jiving bug. That means we're getting close. Come on, hurry up. Oh, there's the flower. It's pulsating. Still waiting. Still sitting here. Please. And there's the taskbar. We're done. So that was 1 minute, 6 seconds, and 9 frames. Yeah, so not exactly what I would consider quick. Alright, so now that we're done timing the startup, for which reason I have not explained, the next thing we're going to do is go straight into cache check in our benchmarking section. Now, why am I doing this? I don't usually go straight into cache check when I'm doing the benchmarks. And just don't worry about that. I will explain in due time. But for now, look at these cache statistics. We only have a level 1 cache and no level 2 cache. Isn't that interesting? Okay, now into the actual benchmarking. Obviously starting off with speed sys, 4.78. This nets us a score of 26.66, which puts us just above an i486 DX2 at 50 megahertz. Got ourselves a landmark 6.00 score of 320.35. Our 3D Bench 1.0C nets us a score of 34.4. And we get a PC Player benchmark score of 9.2. Adding up all those scores gives us a final score of 390.81, which puts this computer in... Let me try that again. Which puts this computer in... Okay, there's supposed to be a chart up on screen right now which shows the rankings. Oh, but wait a minute. What's this on screen? Do we have empty cache slots and conveniently 8 cache chips directly next to them? Yeah, so that's right. I'm actually going to be installing level 2 cache into the system, 256 kilobytes worth, just to see how much it might improve the performance of this beast. Because one of the things that I found while I was doing testing on this is that it is ungodly slow. Alright, so the cache has been installed, the jumpers have been set, and we're going to do a power on test just to make sure everything is working. And look at that on screen, still working, and it even detects 256K of cache in the post. Alright, so we've got the system reassembled, hard drive plugged back in, and now we can repeat that previous test to see if the boot speed has been improved by the cache. So, start that timer. Yeah, so once again I have to fill this awkward empty space with me talking about random stuff, so what other computers could I do? Let's see. I have a compact portable 3 that's half taken apart and doesn't have its original hard drive. I have a white box Pentium system with 12 RAM slots and a broken Windows 95 install. I have a Cyrix 5x86 class board, which was salvaged from a computer that was more rust than metal. I have a Tandy 486 I need to do a Dallas RTC mod on, including desoldering it from the board. And I have a Trash 80 Model 3 that I need to de-refify and clean thoroughly. I have TI 486s with broken motherboards I need to try fix. I have an HP Vectra Pentium 1 that I need to clean and repair. I have 2 more Pentium 1 Packard Bells, both with dead CD-ROM drives and both in need of Windows 95. Alright, idiot, shut up, we're done. Finally. Alright, and now we can go back to DOS and see if there's any improvement in those benchmarks. Alright, I went ahead and redid that cache check before we start the benchmarks, and look at that, 256 kilobytes of level 2 cache. Alright, so for SpeedSys, we've got a score of 26.67, we've got a landmark score of 320.41, we've got a 3D Bench 1.0C score of 37.5, and we've got a PC Player score of 10.6. Alright, so real quick before we get to any of the benchmarking results, let's jump back over to the results of our Windows 95 boot up test. For the pre-cache Windows 95 boot up, we got a startup time of 1 minute, 6 seconds, and 9 frames. And for startup number 2, post-cache, we got a startup time of 1 minute, 5 seconds, and 4 frames. So that is an improvement of 1%. So it could just as easily be explained by the tasks thing popping up in the first startup more than anything else. So that's not great. Let's get to the benchmark results. Now, one thing I've been informed of is that I should be using a geometric average when I'm doing these benchmarks instead of just adding up all the scores like I have been doing. Okay, so I should have everything up in a very cool and nice table for y'all here. And as you can see, the before cache result nets us a geometric average of 40.547. And the after cache scores give us a result of 42.931. According to my amazing math skills, name of Googling the difference, that's a 5.7% difference. So, not as insignificant as I thought originally, which is kind of surprising. But in the grand scheme of things, I actually did expect that adding level 2 cache to a Cyrix CPU would have boosted the scores a lot more. Yeah, so I guess that's just not the case. And yeah, so just a point of policy here. I'm not going to count the with cache score as the official benchmark result. Not that it would actually matter on my current leaderboard, but just because that's an upgrade that I did mostly for curiosity's sake and not how the system actually was. So we're going to use the before cache score as our final benchmark result. And the one thing that I've done, after being informed that using the geometric average is the way to go. I've gone ahead and done the same for the previous benchmark results as well. So here those are. And as you can see, this AST Advantage Exclamation Point Adventure 466 is without a doubt the fastest 486 system in my collection. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyways, enough of my rambling. I'm going to go away now and maybe work on another video. So yeah, have fun. Also, nobody subscribed to me after my last video, even though I put a call to action in there and everything. Hello, Susan, can you please algorithm my video? Thanks.